If you're writing a book, I have some tough love for you. Your book needs criticism. Not because it's bad, but because that will take it to another level. It'll make it better. Here's the thing, not all criticism is created equal. In this video, I'll show you what to look out for and what to look for when getting feedback. How to find the kind that actually helps you become a better writer and helps your book be a better version of itself, and how to use it without crushing your confidence. If you can do that, you'll see just how powerful criticism can be towards taking your book to the next level. Let's get into it. Hey, I'm Colby. I am a fantasy and science fiction writer who aspires to write a book one day. I work full-time, have a family and a social life, but I still manage to consistently write. But I would not have made it very long in this endeavor if I didn't learn how to accept criticism and how to seek it out and find good criticism. So first, let's define what criticism actually is. It is feedback about your story that is specific, actionable, and focused on helping your story become better. And there's two different kinds of that constructive criticism. There is professional and consumer. I think you actually need both, but I think you need to learn how to limit the consumer criticism, but let in more of the professional criticism. So what's the difference? I'll give you an example. Consumer criticism is kind of like book reviews, or beta readers if you have a manuscript that you're sending out to readers. The type of feedback can look like, I was confused about this part of this chapter, or I don't really understand the character's motivation in this arc. That type of feedback tends to point out tension points in your story, but it doesn't give exact professional tips or advice on how to fix it. You need to be careful to not misinterpret what they're saying. What I mean by that is, if someone says, I was confused about this part, and that's all they say, you have to take that and understand that they are not saying this part makes no sense and you're not a good writer. That's not what they're saying. They're just confused in that moment. Maybe it's a chance to make that more understood in the book. They really are trying to help. They just don't have the technical writing experience that you or other professionals have to give you actionable tips. They're more just signals for growth. Professional criticism, as I'm sure you can figure out where this is going, is feedback from other writers. An example might look like, hey, your character's motivation doesn't feel super clear here. This could be a good opportunity to add some of that internal conflict that you've been foreshadowing earlier. You can bring it forth here, and that might make this more of a standout chapter and help their character arc progress. That's useful. That's actionable. That can be priceless to your story. We also need to discuss what type of stuff you should straight up ignore. This is the type of stuff you should just toss out immediately. Ignore it. I most often find this in consumer feedback. It's those one-star reviews that say nothing other than, this sucked. Not only does it often lack substance, but it tears down without offering a way to build back up. It's usually vague, usually pretty harsh, and honestly, it usually says more about the critic than it does about you as the writer or the book. Sometimes you can even get a long review that seems like it has a lot of substance, and maybe it does, but when you really boil it down, this type of feedback, what these people are really trying to say is, hey, this book wasn't for me. It didn't vibe with my personal taste for writing, and that's okay. I don't have to like every book I read. But no one ever says that. Actually, some people do, but most people don't say that. They just say, this book was boring, or like, this character was lame, and that's all they say. It can be pretty hurtful, but I'm telling you, just ignore those people. They're out there. It says nothing about your writing levels. And I'll give you tips later how to determine if the feedback you're receiving is more constructive or if it's more this deconstructive stuff that I just mentioned. So now that we got that out of the way, let's talk about the benefits to receiving criticism. It is very easy for us to get attached to our stories, rightfully so. We love what we're writing, but because of that, we're too close to it. When other people read our work, they can see these things that we can't spot, the blind spots. So they can give us feedback on that and help our story become better. Oftentimes, it can reveal weak points in pacing, weak points in character arcs, or just clarity that you've grown too close to notice. It helps us understand how readers actually experience the book, because we have everything in our head. And sometimes we don't do the best job of getting that thoroughly onto the page, but we don't notice that because our brain fills it in as we're reading, as we're reviewing. But beyond all that, it also strengthens your craft. If you're getting feedback about a certain aspect of your writing, that gives you the chance to really work on that. And a lot of times, the tips themselves can give you tools to help it. Over time, you'll find yourself being a lot more efficient on first and second drafts, needing less revisions, and writing better stories. So, where do you actually find good feedback? Well, start with some writing groups or workshops. You can either do this locally or online. I would recommend joining a writing group and getting some feedback from your fellow members, as well as you providing feedback for them. This is where you'll get all of your professional feedback. Let's say you join a writing group of 4 members. You guys can decide that each week, a different one of you will present a chapter of their book or an excerpt of their book that they're working on. The other 3 will read it up to the point of the meeting, and then at the meeting, they will give their constructive feedback. You take turns each week, so basically once every 4 weeks, you're getting some part of your work looked at, analyzed, and getting great feedback on it. That can be immensely helpful while you're writing a book and just as you're on your journey to becoming a better writer. Then, when you have a finished manuscript, you can send this out to beta readers. You can send it out to as many as you want, as many people that are willing to read it, but I would suggest trying to find people who read the genre that you're writing. It's super awesome if your family wants to read your book. That can be great. They can give you some awesome feedback. But if they don't ever read fantasy compared to someone that you know decently well, but they read 20 fantasy books a year, that person might be a way better candidate as a beta reader than, let's say, like your mom, who doesn't read any fantasy but loves you very much. They're both useful, but this reader might give you a little bit more specific feedback for the type of genre that you're writing. Okay, we're going to talk about how to receive feedback, because it really is a skill, and it's something that I wish I would have been taught before I started receiving it, but now that I know, it helps me a ton. So here we go. When you're receiving feedback, you're going to have this unending urge to defend your work. And I'm not like saying you're getting up in arms about it, but even the littlest things, if someone is confused about it, you're going to want to clarify right then and there. At all costs, avoid doing that. My advice, have a pen and paper or your computer and write down literally everything this person says. You don't have to write down word for word, but write down all the major points as you're going. If you can write down word for word and keep up with them, you must have fast typing skills and you should do it. Not only will this let them finish their main thoughts, it's respectful to them. And if you hold your tongue in a way and take in all the information first, you'll definitely be able to tell if this is going to be useful feedback, if it's going to be constructive, or if it's actually going to be deconstructive. Sometimes you don't know until they really are fully into their feedback. Then when that person finishes, tell them thank you, genuinely, like tell them you're excited to go through these notes later, and then move on to the next person. Don't address anything right then and there. At the very end, after everyone's gone, tell everyone thank you, that this is going to help a ton. And then if people want you to answer questions, you can do it then. And now you have all these notes to refer to. Sometimes in my groups, they'll say, hey, okay, we got our feedback. Is there anything you want to talk about now so we can maybe dive into specific things more? So that's your chance to finally say things if you need to, but still try not to over defend your work. Maybe if you need clarifying questions, ask, but otherwise just keep those notes. We'll go through them later. I promise this is the best way to do it. If you're constantly interrupting, it's just going to start to feel defensive and they're going to be nervous to give you honest feedback. Speaking of giving feedback, let's talk about how to give feedback, because not only will this be good for you in the future, but if you know how to give feedback, you know what to look for when you're receiving it. My approach, you don't have to do this exactly, but the way I do it is I start with broad praise. What did you like about the chapter or the book that you just read overall? What are the strong points that really stood out to you? And be specific, like, hey, I really thought you did a good job of pacing in this book. The entire book kept me turning the pages. I never felt super rushed. I also never felt super bored. It was great. You did a good job on that. You don't have to spend a ton of time on this, but it starts the feedback off on the right foot. It takes their defenses down if they had any. It makes them feel good. And you don't have to lie. You just tell them the truth, what you liked about it. Because I guarantee, even if you don't think something is technically good, I guarantee there's something you liked about it. Then you can shift into that constructive criticism. But again, you need to be specific and actionable on this stuff. But understand that writer's intuition can also be super useful. What I mean by that is if there was something that fell off, but you can't articulate it very well, just saying that can be helpful sometimes. It can be like, hey, in this chapter, I see what you're trying to do, and I like that you're trying to close this character arc, but for some reason, it just didn't land super well for me. Like, it was close, but there was just something off, and I don't know why. I don't know what it is. That can be super helpful. Then after you get all that feedback done, I want you to end with one more bout of praise and then genuinely say thank you for sharing. Because, so for example, be like, so those are all the things that I found while I was going through this that I think could sharpen the book. But again, I really enjoyed it. I found myself really getting into it and immersed. And thank you so much for sharing. Like, I'm glad that you're sharing this story with us. I feel honored that I get to read it. So thanks. As writers, it's scary to share stuff. Like, we know that we're not perfect, but sometimes that is hard to internalize, and it comes off as like, I don't want to share this thing because they're going to tear it down. Most people aren't, but if you verbalize that you're appreciative that they shared it with you, that can go a long way. Okay, so you've received some feedback, you've given some feedback, and now you've got a pile of notes. What's next? First thing is to take a breath. And what I mean by that is, personally, I think you should take like at least 24 hours off before you read through those again and start making any changes. Sometimes, even if you come in with the best mindset and people are giving great feedback and being super positive, as creatives, we sometimes just focus on those things and the things that were wrong, and we twist them. But if you take a step back, it'll let you decompress, and maybe now you can see it as a whole, that it is going to make your work better and nothing's wrong. Then after you've taken some time, it's time to evaluate. Not all feedback is going to be useful or even applicable to the story you're trying to tell. I get feedback from my fellow writers in my writing group that's awesome, and I'll look at it and be like, this is great, but it actually doesn't get my story to where I need it to go. So I'll take that and set it aside. Look for patterns. If there's something that keeps coming up that keeps resonating with readers, that's a signal that it is most definitely something you need to pinpoint and fix. And finally, after that, make a plan of action. Decide when you're going to implement these revisions. Set times into your writing that you're going to do revision instead of writing new words to start working on these things. There's one more thing I need to say. Just because your book gets criticized does not mean that it's bad. I can prove this. Go to Goodreads. Look up your favorite book, a book that you think is a 10 out of 10 perfect book. And I promise you, you will find 1-star reviews that tear this book apart. You can read those and 100% disagree with what they're saying, but it's still out there because not every book is for every reader. And some people just don't do a good job of realizing that and like to tear people down. So just because your book gets criticized, I promise it doesn't mean that it's bad. But if you take one thing from this video, let it be this. Feedback isn't the enemy of creativity. It's the forge that shapes it. So don't hide your work. Let it be seen by people. Let it grow. Let it develop. Let it get feedback. And I promise you, it'll come out on the other side a better version of what it can be. If this video resonated with you, consider subscribing to the channel. I'll have more videos like this where I talk about encouragement, productivity, sustainability, while writing with a full life. And hey, I'd love to hear from you guys. How has feedback helped you in your writing life? Are any of you guys part of a writing group? Do you feel like it's beneficial? If so, let me know in the comments. I'll look at them and I'll reply. All right, guys, until next time, keep writing.